NFL Live out of Miami, and this is from our Adam Schefter. The Dolphins have had trade discussions with the Pittsburgh Steelers about their lone Pro Bowl selection last season, tight end Jonnu Smith, per league sources. Those talks came after Smith expressed an interest in reworking his deal that is scheduled to pay him $4.8 million this season. Now, with Smith seeking a new contract, Miami has sought a trade partner. Last season, Smith set the franchise record for a tight end in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Smith's preference, per sources, is to stay in Miami under a reworked deal. And that is not all from Miami. Here's the latest tweet from Jalen Ramsey as the team explores options to trade him. For the record, BTW, I've loved every city I've played in and the fans who supported. The anger is very misplaced at times, but sometimes valid too. But real ones know the intentions always solid. And how about the guy that said he wanted out at the end of last season? Wide receiver Tyreek Hill met with the media yesterday as the Dolphins' voluntary OTAs got underway.
Every day you got to prove like who you are. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter, how much you've earned or how much success you've had in this league. It's always the next day mentality. And that's something that, my grandparents raised me by. And that's something that Mike preaches, here in this locker room. So every day I'm trying to prove myself as one of those guys that, this team can depend on in crucial moments. So I'm going to stand on that too, though, because that's just me as a person, as a player, as an individual. So I try to carry myself in that way.
Mike Tannenbaum, boy, fun times being a GM there in Miami. If you could place yourself in that front office, and we know Chris Greer does a terrific job, but what would your top priority be?
Yeah, well, first of all, starting with Jalen Ramsey, it's not if, but when. And what's going on there is there's guaranteed money. And as you alluded to in our meeting earlier, there's also the June 1st rule that they have to contemplate. Those are hard dynamics, guys, because not only are you negotiating draft choice compensation, but you're also negotiating who's paying what. That's hard to do. Hey, we want you to take the whole salary. No, Miami. You're going to eat 50%, 60% of it. So it's really hard when you're negotiating a guaranteed salary because they're two simultaneous negotiations. It looks like this is going to happen. It's just a matter of, again, not if, but when. As it relates to Jonnu Smith, look, he had a great year last year. 29 years old, 8 touchdowns, 88 catches. He wants more money, understandably, going to last year of his deal. When you connect the dots, look, Arthur Smith's the guy that used a lot of tight ends, offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. So this is obviously an economic play. And lastly, on Tyreek Hill, just show up every day, stack one good day on top of the next, and let's make some progress.
Yeah, you mentioned June 1st. The Fins are going to save almost $10 million against the cap if they trade Ramsey after that date. So we'll wait a few days on that one. Okay. Good job there. Go to the NFC East and, of course, start with the reigning Super Bowl champs. Here's Bill Barnwell back with his superlative for the Eagles.
The Eagles are most likely to inspire jealousy around the NFL. And it's not just those Super Bowl rings, but as Joe Burrow put it, they're paying everybody. But he's about halfway. They are paying pretty much everyone on offense, where they'll earn more than $217 million this year. Makes them the most expensive offense in NFL history. But the defense is 31st in cash spending. We've seen guys like Josh Sweat and C.J. Gardner-Johnson leave this offseason. The Eagles are going to rely on those young defenders who played so well during the Super Bowl run to be the core of that team in 2025.
All right, Sam, most likely to inspire jealousy in other teams. What about those missing pieces on defense? How big a concern is that?
Well, the best part about this young defense is that they have an old defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio coached the #1 defense when it comes to points allowed or yards allowed, #2 when it came to points allowed. Even though some of the veterans are gone, the young superstars are the guys who shined in the Super Bowl. Think Cooper DeJean, think Quinyon Mitchell. And oh, by the way, the Eagles dominated again in the draft. Jahad Campbell is going to be a star. And so, yes, some of the players on defense are younger, but they're experienced and they have an older veteran coach to lead them along the way.
Yeah, they allowed the second fewest points per game last season after allowing the third most the year prior. That's what kind of difference Fangio made. Now to Washington, where Bill's superlative for the Commanders is most likely to eat an early dinner and go to sleep at a sensible time. One of my favorites. Several key pieces for the Commanders are over 30. Of course, though, their star is 24 years old. Their quarterback and head coach Dan Quinn spoke about the challenges Jaden Daniels may face in his second season.
there's a lot of playbook that people haven't seen, number one. Featuring some new players and into some different spots. And that's what's kind of fun about now, exploring some new thoughts, some new ideas, and some scheme, while like sharpening on the things like, can I go from, really good at something to elite?
It's so funny. It could go either way, right? Because we've seen quarterbacks like C.J. Stroud, for a variety of reasons, some fall off in their second season. What do you expect from Daniels?
Yeah, C.J. Stroud is the comparison here because he plateaued in his second year. He didn't really regress, but it was a problem. There was a confluence of a bad offensive line and lazy play calling. I don't think you're going to get either of those in Washington this year. We know what Jaden Daniels did well in his rookie year. He was able to excel in every area of the field. 52 forced missed tackles as a runner, led all quarterbacks, and didn't really have any turnover-worthy plays to speak of. So for me, when I look at this, I think about Josh Connerly, their first-round pick from Oregon. He is so important. He needs to win the right tackle battle, let the other guys kick inside. That is going to give him a lot of flexibility, and it will be a good offensive line in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he was sacked the sixth most of any quarterback last season. Meanwhile, we go to the Meadowlands, where Bill has the Giants as most likely to throw deep more often. Obviously not a team known for explosive plays. When Daniel Jones was at quarterback, head coach Brian Daboll spoke yesterday on how he's going to share the reps in that new quarterback room.
Yeah, they'll all get reps at various spots. So we got a plan for that, and we've been working that since they've been here. But they'll all get reps.
That was really insightful.
Thanks, Brian.
Mike T. We have Russell Wilson. We have Jackson Dart. We have Jameis Winston. How should they navigate this?
Yeah, that's
for everyone.
That's the Brian Daboll, our quarterback coach, who would walk in and be like, "That Kevin Clark wrote something negative about us." The smugness we got. Look, if I was them, New York Jets, 2009, we put in Mark Sanchez, never looked back, went to back-to-back championship games. I would do that with Jackson Dart. If I'm the Giants, I'd rather go 6-11 with an ascending Jackson Dart than win 7 games with an aging Russell Wilson. Like, Jackson Dart's your future. Like, just put in him, let him go. You drafted Cam Scatterbo, you got Tyrone Tracy, you got a star in Malik Neighbors. Feed into these young offensive skill players. That's your future.
Dart, start of the season? You
right
started
now.
Right away.
Day one, snap one, rep one. Let's go.
Okay, let's go. I love it. All right, finally, Dallas. Expectations always high there. Bill, the Cowboys superlative, please.
The Dallas Cowboys are most likely to trust their old scouting reports, even when a player has struggled in the NFL. We saw them make a trade last year for Jonathan Mingo, who would struggle with Carolina, thinking they could turn this former second-round pick around. Cowboys made a lot of moves like that this offseason. They trade for Kyer Elam and Kenneth Murray, 2 former first-round picks who have struggled so far on defense. They signed Peyton Turner away from the Saints and a former top 5 pick in Solomon Thomas, and then, of course, the big move for George Pickens. The Cowboys are betting that these players are going to be a lot better in Dallas than they've been elsewhere.
Sam, I don't know about this strategy. Is betting on players who have not performed as well as their initial evaluation, is that a good idea?
I actually hate the strategy. I don't think that strategy is a good strategy. But what is a good strategy is the way that they've drafted. They have 3 first-round picks that will be starting this year. And so if you want to be a dominant football team, you start in the trenches. I get it. The running back room isn't as experienced. Jaden Blue may be getting more of those reps, the rookie out of Texas. But no matter what names you see on your screen, they'll be running behind 5 offensive linemen, 3 first-round picks, and also Cooper Beebe at center, who's a third-round pick who was top 10 in pass protection. And so I don't love the strategy of trying to go and have this redemption tour of players who haven't proven themselves. But building on the offensive line and having those running backs on your screen run behind them could help Brian Schottenheimer have another top #1 rushing offense in the NFL.
Hey, speaking of, the Cowboys' new head coach Brian Schottenheimer spoke earlier this afternoon to the media, and he had some interesting thoughts on where Dak Prescott is on his career path. Take a listen.
I think Dak is in the developmental phase, and that sounds crazy for a guy that's played that much, but like there's things that we're tweaking with Dak. The minute these quarterbacks think that they've figured it all out, that's when it's probably time for them to think about doing something different, because the way defense attack in this league, it makes it almost impossible to ever relax.
Okay, I want to be really fair about this. Okay, he was initially asked if Will Greer was in his developmental phase, and basically that was his response. everybody is in theirs, including Dak. What do you think about what he said?
We're all in our developmental phase, right? I'm going to chalk this up to coach speak, okay? I'm going to assume he doesn't really believe that Dak Prescott is still trying to make huge developmental leaps as a quarterback. We can always get better, but I think he understands that Dak is established in this league. I'm going to give a compliment sandwich about the Cowboys roster, okay? Number one is that George Pickens is the third best vertical receiver in football over the last few years behind Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill. That's good. The bad news is that's not enough. And that's not enough in the NFC East, where I'm not seeing a huge path for them to be anything better than third in that division. Because you're not going to catch the Commanders, who are on the ascent, and you're not going to catch the Eagles, who have the best roster in football. Hope is not a strategy. And as Bill outlined, you're just seeing too many flyers on guys where we say, hey, we hope we can get here. I have to close the compliment sandwich. George Pickens is a very funny, engaging guy. There.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
Hope may not be Hope may not be a strategy, Hannah, but getting good players back from IR is meaningful. Sure. Okay. And when you look at guys like DeMarvion, Overshown, Trayvon Diggs, those are really good players that are coming back. Donovan Ezeraku. I think this defense, Matt Eberflus was a really good defensive coordinator. Obviously, it didn't work out as a head coach, but I think this defense will be seeking good guys. Now, look, offensively, totally agree. It's a little bit of a work in progress. But I think this defense will play better and make this team more competitive than maybe they're getting credit for.
Yeah, he wants that attacking physical offense. We'll see if they've done enough at running back, though, too, as well, to make that a reality. Time for one more thing. We're going to go back to Shoddy. He describes a cool moment today between his new wide receiving duo, CeeDee Lamb, and the aforementioned George Pickens.
There was a play, and it really wasn't anything George did, but we're in the red zone, and we're in kind of a spread formation. We hit him for a touchdown. Joe did on a little a bender, like a little skinny post down in the low red zone, and CeeDee was on the other side. And when CeeDee broke out and he looked back to see where the ball went, and he saw George in the end zone, he kind of dragged his toes up. CeeDee was like, yes! So I think his excitement for knowing that we've added some pieces which will add to the competition, it was cool to see a guy like CeeDee be excited. And those two guys' relationship is awesome.
What do you think, fellas? Kevin?
I'll just say this. It's good for us to have another good player on the Cowboys who has a contract up, because that means more topics for our shows.
Typically, when you acquire players in the last year of their deal, they're going to play.
The Cardinals revamped their defensive line. They add Super Bowl champion Josh Sweat from the Eagles, as well as Dalvin Tomlinson and Calais Campbell. And the Niners paid their stars. They gave Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, George Kittle big extensions, but then they also lost some key players: Deebo Samuel, Charvarius Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, and Dre Greenlaw. So, in the spirit of graduation and yearbooks, Bill Barnwell is handing out off-season superlatives, starting with the Niners. Here's Bill on his superlative for San Fran.
The San Francisco 49ers are the team least likely to use the word rebuild around the organization. There's no disputing the Niners lost talent this offseason. A league-high 8 players who signed for 8-figure salaries left San Francisco. But there are reasons to be optimistic. Brock Purdy's deal got done at a very reasonable rate. Robert Saleh came back, and he's done great work developing defensive talent, not only with the Jets, but also beforehand with San Francisco. And their rivals are actually reasons to think the Niners could be back quicker than we expect. Look at the 2021 Eagles or the 2023 Rams. Two teams coming off of disappointing seasons who were not expected to make an immediate return to the postseason. That's exactly what happened. The 2025 Niners will hope to follow in their footsteps.
I like that. That less likely to use the word rebuild, which they don't. They don't rebuild. They've been consistently very good year after year. So what are their top 3 priorities?
All right, Hannah, number 1, can their young defensive replacements step up and be at least serviceable or productive for them? Remarkably, they lost 95 starts in free agency, but it's guys like the Dre Greenlaws of the world, Talanoa Hufanga, guys that are really important. So Michael Williams in particular has to take a big step for them. Secondly, can they replace Deebo Samuel? Guys, 26% of their passing game went through Deebo Samuel. So can Ricky Pearsall step up? Can Brandon Ayuk take a big leap this year? That's going to be really important for their offense. And then lastly, the big 3, can they stay healthy? That's Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey. They are 20-6 over the last 3 years when those three players are on the field together. If those three are healthy, you're right. We're not talking about rebuild. We're talking about contending.
Yeah, when McCaffrey is hurt, it just affects so many things with the 49ers. All right, let's go to Arizona. Bill Barnwell is giving the Cardinals most likely to make a leap on defense. You know, there was a really fun defense to watch. Not always the most effective, though, Sam. And you played for that Arizona defense. So give us their top 3 summer priorities.
Well, top 3 are all going to be on the defensive side. Number 1, it's going to be Will Johnson, their top draft pick, one of the top draft picks in last year's draft. He went a little bit lower than expected because of injury, but if he can be healthy, this dude is a dominant lockdown, shutdown corner. Number 2, the addition of Josh Sweat. Every team needs an elite level pass rusher, and Josh Sweat could be that, but he could be that because of number 3, Calais Campbell. I played with Calais Campbell when I was with the Arizona Cardinals as a rookie. Calais is going on year 18. He mentored me back when I was a rookie about 15, 17, how many years ago? And I had my best statistical year. Imagine what Calais Campbell is going to do for guys like Walter Nolan, who was the Cardinals' first-round pick out of Ole Miss, for guys like Josh Sweat, who, if he is double-teamed, he'll have one-on-ones. Even for guys on the other side of the ball, getting the offensive line more ready as well. And so for me, this defense could make a huge leap because of the young talent, but also the experience of guys like Calais Campbell.
And they need to. They allowed the second most points in the NFL over the last 3 seasons. So that's got to happen. Let's go to Seattle now, where Bill has deemed them the most likely to believe in their own draft picks. Some really big names are gone, but they were able to stockpile some picks and some cash, and it sounds like they're going to rely heavily on those young players. So, Kevin, give us 3 priorities for them this offseason.
Yeah, these are easy. Number 1, fix the offensive line. They used Gray Zabel as their first pick in the draft. They need help from Charles Cross, but yes, that needs to be shored up. We're always asking if they fix their offensive line. Number 2, will the rookies be ready? They took a very athletic draft class. Nick Emenwari, the safety, Elijah Arroyo from Miami. Those guys have to be ready if they're going to take another leap. But number 3, and the most important, is Sam Darnold. He had the best resurrection story in football last year. I don't know how else you would describe it. Kevin O'Connell, however, is one of the best quarterback coaches in football. He understands how to resurrect a career. Clint Kubiak has been a very good offensive coordinator, but he's not Kevin O'Connell. So for me, it's, can you have Sam Darnold have the same success with the deep ball this year as he did last year without Justin Jefferson? Okay, JSN is a very good wide receiver, but he's not Justin Jefferson. So for me, you need to do maybe the hardest job in football, which is to keep a miracle last year going in different circumstances. It's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, with so many changes there in Seattle on the offensive side. More touchdowns last season than in his previous 4 seasons combined. All right, we're going to go to L.A. now. Bill has the NFC West champion Rams as most likely to cut coupons on defense, which is pretty funny. They're spending about half the league average because of some of those great draft picks on that side of the ball. So let's assess their top 3 priorities for the summer. Kevin, start us off.
All right, so you mentioned those draft picks. Jared Verse is a franchise-changing guy. Les Snead, the GM on my show a couple weeks ago, and he said they spent 5 top 100 draft picks to replace Aaron Donald, and they've almost gotten there. When you look at Braden Fisk and you look at the guys in their front 7, they combined for 130 pressures for their top 4 pass rushers last year. That is top 5 in the league. But Verse is going to take another step forward. He will be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate this year, and that's why the Rams are real deal Super Bowl contenders.
Wow, you're giving out all sorts of awards this morning. I love it. All right.
You know what complements a great front 7? A great secondary.
There we go.
We talked about Jalen Ramsey. Go out and get Jalen Ramsey. Bring him back. They're about 1 or 2 players away from being a dominant defense, because I agree with Kevin on the front 7. What better way to do that than to go get Jalen Ramsey, who still has 1 or 2 years left at the elite level. They were right there with Philly a year ago, and they're going to have to shut down that offense at some point. Jalen Ramsey can do that.
I'm most excited about this offense, specifically the receiving core. You go and add Devontae Adams to a young, talented Puka Nacua, to a young, talented 6th-round pick in Jordan Whittington, who came on late and came out strong. Yes, you talk about the loss of Cooper Kupp, but he has been replaced. You see Tutu Atwell as well. This receiving core is going to be elite. They were last year. They haven't missed a beat. So I'm excited to watch what happens with the receiving core, because as anyone knows, a perfectly placed ball, that chemistry outdoes a great defense.
Yeah, and they finished hot last season. They won 9 of their last 12 games. All right, new on NFL about what type of quarterback he could become in this new Jets offense.
I think I can be great, and that's been the goal for me my whole life, my whole career. So, like I said, I think the sky's the limit. for this team, for this offense. But we do have a long way to go. Like I said, our offense and defense are new, so guys are, really tuned in and locked in and trying to get everything down. But I think, once we do, I think the sky's the limit. I mean, we have, all the guys we need. We have all the talent. So it's really just going to come down to discipline and execution when the games come.
In Justin Fields' 6 starts last season with the Steelers, his numbers were similar to that of his predecessor in New York, Aaron Rodgers. Fields slightly better in completion percentage, yards per attempt, and total QBR, and he went 4-2, as you'll remember. Haven't been able to find a long-term solution to quarterback worst total QBR in the NFL over the last 10 seasons, as our former Jets GM, Mikey T, knows all too well as he's watching from afar. All right, let's look forward. Offensive coordinator is Tanner Engstrand. He's coming over with Aaron Glenn from the Lions. How do you think this is all going to work out?
Yeah, Hannah, I think you just nailed it. I think this is going to look and feel like the 2022 Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell's first year. I've known Aaron Glenn a long time as a player scout, got to know him through the interview process. This is going to be a well-coached team that's really tough, and they are not going to beat themselves. Last year's team, guys, last in penalty yards, second last in penalties. They struggled with turnovers, scoring at the end of halves. That's exactly what they're not going to do this year. This is going to be a team that maybe isn't the most explosive, but look for them to be efficient. Look for them not to turn the ball over. And I think that plays into Justin Fields' strength, where he can make plays with his feet. And I think maybe the record will be better than 3-13-1 of Detroit, and it's a work in progress. But this team will look and feel differently with Aaron Glenn's stamp on it.
The only thing more embarrassing last football season than the New York Jets is when I found Sam Acho in the Bristol cafeteria and told him the University of Miami was going to win the national championship. Okay, that was a mistake there. That was the most embarrassing thing.
Owned up to that.
I just had to bring it up. Sam's probably been thinking about it for 45 minutes here as he sits here listening to my takes. But when I look at Justin Fields, he needs to be more than a bridge quarterback, because he is a literal bridge quarterback when you look at the way he's paid. He is the only quarterback in the NFL as far as average annual value, making between $14 and $33 million. He makes 20. He's the only guy in that tax bracket, so to speak. And so for me, the Jets and Justin Fields can solve each other's problems. They can resurrect Justin Fields' career, get him a long-term deal, and establish credibility with the Jets. I completely agree about Aaron Glenn. I've been around him. I interviewed him in Detroit. He understands what it means to connect to players and establish a credibility there with the guys in a locker room that desperately needs credibility.
Yeah, it's more than just about credibility. Justin Fields needs to improve his play specifically, not the guys around him. It's got to be him. You think about quarterbacks that have been one-dimensional. Let's say you called a guy like Josh Allen one-dimensional. Well, he improved his play. All of a sudden became 2D. Let's say you wanted to say Lamar Jackson was one-dimensional. All of a sudden, he had his best statistical career last year. Right now, defenses look at Justin Fields and say, okay, he's great in the RPO game, an elite-level runner. But as a quarterback, they're not afraid of Justin Fields. And in order for him not to be a bridge quarterback, he has to improve as a passer. It's not just about the talent around you or the coaching. Now is the time, if you're on a quote prove it contract, to go and prove it as a passer. Yes, use your dynamism as a runner, but he has to improve as a passer for defenses to be intimidated or afraid of Justin Fields.
Yeah, second worst total QBR among quarterbacks with 40 starts over the last few years. Had you only predicted that the University of Miami would have the top draft pick?
I mean, he looks like Rasheed. I mean, I think having the injury was it sucked, but happening so early in the season, he was back right when the offseason started, and so he was up here working hard, extremely hard, and he was back home working extremely hard, and so I was throwing with him in Dallas a little bit, and then getting him back out here, and there's no limitations. He's out there playing, he's making plays on the football field, he's explosive, he looks fast, and you saw the start of last season. I think he can be one of the best receivers in the league, and so just to have him, to add with Xavier and Hollywood and all these other guys that we have, it's another position I think Veach has done a great job of bringing in competition, so that we can go out there and make a lot of plays happen.
Yeah, and listen, he's going to be looking to get that deep ball going again this season. In Mahomes' first 6 seasons, he actually ranked top 3 in QBR and touchdown to interception ratio when throwing at least 20 yards downfield. But the last 2 seasons, that's a different story. Mahomes ranks in the bottom 3 in completion percentage over expectation and touchdown to interception ratio. And obviously, that's not all on him. The Chiefs receivers dropping nearly 7% of his passes during that time. But he mentioned the receivers, Mikey T, also as as we know, Kelsey decided to come back. How do you like this offense going into next season?
I like all those things, everything that you listed, everything that Patrick Mahomes talked about, if he's protected well. Guys, he was pressured at the 6th highest rate. Now, give them credit. They threw a lot of resources. They signed Jalen Brown, someone who's a little bit under the radar, hasn't started a lot. They drafted Josh Simmons, who's very talented, coming off a big injury. If that solidifies protection, which it didn't in the Super Bowl, this offense evolves because, as you mentioned, Hannah, when you think about Xavier Worthy and a healthy Rashee Rice, obviously dealing with the suspension, this is a different offense than Travis Kelce. Plus, they have 2 really good runners in Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. So, assuming that they can protect Patrick Mahomes, I think this is a different offense, a more explosive one.
The fact that the Kansas City Chiefs were the only team in the NFL last year who averaged less than 3 air yards per completion is a football tragedy. We remember what it looked like when he was able to go deep on seemingly every pass. And when I look at the tape now, he just seems uncomfortable, Mahomes, when he's going deep. And you can talk about the offensive line. You can talk about the fact that he doesn't have chemistry with his new kind of deep threats. Xavier Worthy was a rookie, obviously, last year. Rashee Rice was hurt. Hollywood Brown was hurt. But there's no excuse for being worse in adjusted completion percentage on deep passes than Daniel Jones and Cooper Rush last year, okay? Mahomes talked about this a couple of weeks ago. He said this is him either missing throws or not taking them, not pulling the trigger on those throws. I want to see more comfort out of him. I understand defenses play him differently with the too high looks, but there's still opportunities around the sideline area. I want to see better chemistry with Xavier Worthy.
Well, the best way to be more comfortable in the pocket as a quarterback is to have better protection. Mike T, you alluded to it earlier. I want to make point to one name, Kingsley Suamataia. He was drafted to be a tackle last year, likely going to move into left guard to replace Joe Thuney, and then the draft of Josh Simmons. I think that these 2 young players, Simmons being a first-round pick, Suamataia being a second-round pick out of BYU, are going to be huge, not just early in the season, but late in the season. These 2 young players are going to have to go against Khalil Mack early. Talking about Josh Simmons playing Khalil Mack, and then week 2 they play the Philadelphia Eagles. And so I think it might be a struggle early for the offensive line, but that early exposure to some dominant defensive players will prepare the young players for the future, i.e. playoffs and potentially another Super Bowl run.
Sam, just to follow up on something Kevin said, I got to work with the great Rex Ryan. Just ask Rex if he's great. He'll be but he always talked about how pressure impacted the eye level of the quarterback. And going back to what Kevin was saying about those statistics, guys, that is certainly what has happened. The pressure has impacted even someone as great as Patrick Mahomes, his eye level. With better protection, he'll have confidence to step up in the pocket, and hopefully they'll get that explosiveness back.
And that's one thing people forget about. When I think about football, we all talk about the quarterback and the quarterback play. But as a guy who was a pass rusher, as an edge rusher, if I can beat my guy one-on-one, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. If I get there before the quarterback has a chance to get the ball out, all of a sudden I win. And so, yes, you could talk about getting sacked, all those things. He needs protection. And I think that's exactly why you saw Andy Reid so excited about Josh Simmons. That's why they're making the move. They kept Trey Smith. They didn't let him go in free agency because they understand the importance of protection for Patrick Mahomes.
Biggest news of Reid said that Josh Simmons, the first-round pick, is ahead of schedule with his injury. If he's healthy, if he can get a starting spot, that changes everything and just solves pretty much everything we're talking about right now.
Yeah, we'll see how quickly all of those new faces, new positions on the offensive line, we'll see how quickly all of that is able to gel because they have some people coming for them. Like, what about the Denver Broncos? They were a surprise playoff team last season, finishing with a 10-7 record. They went a perfect 8-0, though, against teams that had a 500 record or worse. So they beat the teams they were supposed to beat. And except for that Week 18, when the Chiefs rested most of their starters, they were 1-7 against teams with winning records. And Bo Nix excelled in those games against lesser competition. Here he is speaking today on his progression in year 2.
I feel like I'm a lot further. Just spitting out play calls a lot easier, just processing, being around VJ for a year, understanding the defense that I'm going to get. So it's a lot better. It's a lot more enjoyable not thinking, right now as opposed to what I was doing last year. Haven't done anything up until this point, and I got a lot to prove, a lot to show. So, every day it's working. Every day it's finding a way to get better because you don't want to get to, year 2 or go down the road and, all of a sudden you got stuck and didn't get any better. So that's my focus right now is just not even worried about what people are saying. Just internally, I know I got a long way to go.
And Sam, they finished 5 games back at the Chiefs, but it was a great pick for them. Let's face it, handpicked by Sean Payton. What are your expectations for the two of them together in year 2?
I expect a lot more success for Bo Nix and for this Denver Broncos offense. The reason why isn't just because he's more experienced, because they've added pieces, specifically Evan Ingram at tight end. Why does that piece matter? The reason it matters is that Sean Payton talks a lot about the middle triangle, quarterback, running back, and tight ends. I know it because I played against him time and time again. You see him attack the middle of the field, whether it's through running back, screen game, whether it's through tight end mismatches. That's an area of improvement that I think the Denver Broncos are going to have. Yes, Cortland Sutton on the outside. Marvin Mims is dynamic, but Evan Ingram is going to be a big-time playmaker in this offense because of the way that Sean Payton loves to attack the middle of defenses.
I knew the floor was going to be really high for Bo Nix because he played so much college football. He's one of these guys like Michael Penix, like Jaden Daniels, who they threw the ball like 2,000 times in college. It's a different era with the transfer portal, with COVID, that extra year that those guys got. So I knew he was going to have instant success. I didn't know it would be like this. The difference maker this year with Bo Nix is going to be R.J. Harvey. Because nobody get mad at what I'm about to say. Bo Nix was one of the best in college last year, but he can also catch the passes. Alvin Kamara had similar success under Sean Payton very early. He had 44% of the snaps his rookie year, but still had some of the best numbers in all of football his rookie year. I'm expecting R.J. Harvey to be perhaps a dark horse rookie of the year candidate.
Yeah, and the other thing that we have to focus on is the amount of turnovers that Bo Nix had. Sean Payton is a Bill Parcells disciple, always talking about how teams can lose games before you ever win them. And last year, Bo Nix was 17th in turnovers. So the turnovers have to improve. And then you look at someone like Joe Burrow, guys, massive drop. He had 13 touchdown passes his rookie year, 34 second year. And I think as both, Sam and Kevin have mentioned, be it Evan Ingram, R.J. Harvey, Bo Nix is going to be a lot better. I'm not saying he's going to have the Joe Burrow jump, but if he could just cut down on the turnovers, be a little bit more efficient with an underrated defense, Hannah, this team, I'm not saying they're going to beat Kansas City, but they'll make it very competitive. Yeah,
maybe underrated defense, but really, really solid defense. And one of the things I'm sure you appreciated as a GM is they re-signed more of their own players than any other team in the NFL this season. Well, new Patriots receiver Stefon Diggs is absent from their voluntary OTAs. This comes amidst a video circulating on social media that appears to show Diggs with 3 women on a boat. He is seen passing them a bag containing an unknown pink substance. New head coach Mike Vrabel was asked about Diggs' absence yesterday.
It's something that we're aware of, and obviously we want to make great decisions on and off the field. Any conversations that I've had with Stefon will remain between him and I and the club. We're going to coach the guys that show up at 8, and the ones that say, hey, I got a situation, we'll be here at 8:05. We'll coach those as well. This is a voluntary part of our off-season program, and every player that's not here, which there aren't many, have been in communication with me and their position coaches.
And for the latest on this story, we turn to Patriots reporter Mike Reese live in Foxborough. Mike, what more can you tell us about the team's reaction to this video?
Well, Hannah, let's start by zooming out and focusing on a core part of Mike Vrabel's coaching philosophy. On his first day on the job, he said, we want to treat players the way they treat the team. And in communicating with some within the organization, this video surfacing obviously isn't an example of the way they'd like to see players treat the team. And one example as to why that's the case is yesterday before practice, Vrabel comes over to address reporters, and the first 6 questions he gets were on Diggs, who wasn't even here. So it was a distraction to the work at hand. And the other point here, and Vrabel mentioned it, this is voluntary work. Players don't have to be here, but the players that are here, Vrabel is stressing connectivity. He wants them to get to know each other, to work together. And one teammate of Diggs said yesterday that Diggs really hasn't been around that much. So that sort of gives you a snapshot, Hannah, as to they want Diggs here and they look forward to him being here and being a big part of what they do. But at this point, it's a lot of headlines for a player they haven't really seen that much in recent weeks.
Yeah, and a player who certainly as a new player on the roster could use some connectivity, as you say, with his teammates. Also a guy that gave $28 million